Hello guys, welcome to Business Curve. Let's start today business and finance news of the world. So the first news is, European stocks cautious, on course for winning week. Thursday marked the end of the World Economic Forum, where business leaders, financiers and politicians offered some ominous predictions for the European economy. Russia's defense ministry claimed overnight that it will allow foreign ships to leave ports on the Black Sea and Sea of Azov, according to state news agency Interfax, amid mounting concerns about rising global food prices. So the next news is, Twitter shareholders sue Elon Musk and Twitter over chaotic deal. Since Musk's acquisition bid, Twitter's share price has dropped more than 12%, and Tesla's is down about 28% as part of a broad sell-off in tech stocks. In a proposed class action lawsuit filed on Wednesday, Twitter shareholders alleged that Musk violated California corporate laws on several fronts, and in doing so engaged in market manipulation. The shareholders' complaint says his gripes about bots were part of a scheme to negotiate a better price or kill the deal. So the next news is, Biden to travel to Uvalde to mourn victims of Texas school shooting. President Joe Biden will travel to Uvalde, Texas on Sunday to grieve with and console the families of the victims of Tuesday's massacre at an elementary school. The mass shooting, carried out by a lone 18-year-old gunman, left 19 children and 2 teachers dead. The President and the First Lady believe it is important to show their support for the community, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said Thursday. We cannot become numb to this. So the next news is, Microsoft executive tells employees in Windows and Office groups to be more cautious in hiring as economic conditions continue to tighten. A Microsoft executive in charge of Office is telling employees to be more cautious when it comes to opening up new roles. Microsoft's Office and Windows businesses are growing, but they're not keeping up with the Azure cloud business. 2 weeks ago, Microsoft told employees it would increase part of their compensation. So the next news is, George Soros says Russia's gas storage is almost full and Europe should hold its nerve. Russian President Vladimir Putin's bargaining position is not as strong as he pretends, and Europe has leverage against him, according to billionaire investor George Soros. Russia has recently cut gas supplies to Finland, arguing the country is not paying for it in rubles. Bulgaria and Poland also stopped receiving Russian gas supplies a couple of weeks ago. Energy analysts have said that Russia's targets for gas stocks could be achieved this summer. Energy Aspects' Leon Izbeki said that Russia lacks flexibility in its gas storage and does not have the means to divert gas from Europe to, for example, Asia due to a lack of pipeline infrastructure. So the next news is, home listings suddenly jump as sellers worry they may miss out on the red-hot housing market. The supply of homes for sale jumped 9% last week compared with the same week 1 year ago, according to Realtor.com. Real estate brokerage Redfin also reported that new listings rose nearly twice as fast in the 4 weeks ended May 15 as they did during the same period a year ago. Pending home sales, a measure of signed contracts on existing homes, dropped nearly 4% in April, month to month, and were down just over 9% from April 2021, according to the National Association of Realtors. So the next news is, Macy stock surges as company raises 2022 profit outlook despite uncertain retail landscape. Macy's on Thursday reported fiscal first quarter profits and sales ahead of analysts' expectations. The department store chain reaffirmed its fiscal 2022 sales outlook and raised its profit guidance, expecting stronger credit card revenue for the rest of the year. So the next news is, Tom Cruise sets his sights on his first $100 million domestic opening with Top Gun: Maverick. Tom Cruise has generated more than $4.2 billion at the domestic box office, but he's never had a film open to more than $100 million. Cruise's current domestic box office record is 2005 War of the Worlds, which snared $64.8 million. Box office analysts currently foresee a domestic opening of between $98 million and $125 million for the film. So the next news is, Kohl stock surges on report bidders are still competing for company amid market volatility. Kohl shares surged Wednesday on hopes that the retailer could still be bought amid a volatile market. A Reuters report said bidders competing to buy Kohl's are preparing to make binding offers, albeit lower than the indicative bids. Earlier this year, Kohl's rejected an offer of $64 a share from Starboard Value-backed Acacia Research for being too low. So the next news is, thousands of people are leaving Hong Kong and now it's clear where they're going. Hong Kong lost 93,000 residents in 2020, followed by another 23,000 in 2021. But early estimates show this year will see far more people go. Many people and companies are moving to Singapore, though some expatriates are returning home and Hong Kongers are applying for residency under new visa programs launched in Canada and the United Kingdom. There's also an increase in moves from Hong Kong to Dubai, Japan, South Korea, and Thailand, according to insiders. So the next news is, Biden moves to protect major Alaska watershed from mining. The Biden administration on Wednesday moved to ban the disposal of mining waste in Alaska's Bristol Bay watershed, potentially halting the controversial Pebble Mine project. If finalized, the proposal from the Environmental Protection Agency would protect one of the world's largest salmon fisheries and block a plan to mine in the watershed for copper, gold, and other metals. The Bristol Bay watershed has supported critical wildlife and a $2 billion commercial fishing industry that has long sustained Alaska Native communities and attracted travelers to the region. So the next news is, Alibaba, Tencent, and JD.com all just posted their slowest revenue growth on record. Alibaba's total revenue rose by 9% in the latest quarter from a year ago, the slowest on record, according to financial history accessed through Wind Information. Tencent's revenue for the quarter was little changed, while JD.com saw a roughly 18% increase from a year ago, both the slowest on record, according to Wind data. Chinese tech giant Beiyu's mild 1% revenue increase was only the worst since 2020. A year that saw 2 quarters of revenue decline, Wind data showed. So the next news is, capital gains may have triggered hundreds of billions more in individual taxes for 2021, analysis shows. If you're grappling with the sting of higher than expected capital gains taxes for 2021 and losses in 2022, experts say there may be ways to soften the blow. Filers paid hundreds of billions more in taxes for 2021. And surging capital gains may have been to blame, according to an analysis from the Penn-Wharton budget model. Last year's tax gains were brutal, said Carl Frank, president of NI Financial Services. When you pair that with this year's losses, investors have a double whammy. So the next news is, Pakistan faces $6.4 billion in foreign debt as IMF talks drag on. Pakistan faces $6.4 billion in dollar debt due over the next 3 years as Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's new government is trying to meet bailout terms set by the International Monetary Fund. The country, under pressure to keep its economy afloat and avert a sovereign default, needs about $3.16 billion to pay dollar bonds and loans this year, $1.52 billion next year, and $1.71 billion in 2024, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. So the next news is, the U.S. economy shrank slightly faster in the first quarter. America's economy shrank in the first quarter of the year at a slightly faster rate than initially reported, the Bureau of Economic Analysis said Thursday. U.S. gross domestic product, the broadest measure of economic activity, decreased at an annualized rate of 1.5% between January and March, adjusted for seasonal swings, according to the second estimate of the data. Some economists fear this could mean the nation might be headed for another recession, commonly defined as 2 quarters of declines in GDP.